Let's get some reaction to the newly elected Free State ANC leadership. We're joined now by political analyst Lukhona Mnguni. Thank you so much, Lukhona, for joining us this afternoon. You know, what's your take from the leadership structure now there in the Free State, the new leadership, Mxolisi Dukwana, also known as the president's guy, as we just heard from Sipamandla as well. Any surprises? Not really, but what's your take? And also, what do you think should be the first task at hand for this newly elected leadership?
Well, good afternoon, Baron, and good afternoon to our viewers at ENCA. Look, it's a bit of a leadership outcome that you would say is unexpected because of the timing of this conference. I do think that at some point, had this conference been held in 2022 ahead of the national conference, Mxolisi Dukwana might have struggled a bit to emerge as one of the contenders for chairperson because of how much the contestation was quite cluttered in the build-up towards this conference. But I think the outcome of the NASREC 2022 ANC conference, of course, strengthening the position of President Ramaphosa as president of the ANC, winning with quite a substantial margin compared to his 2017 margin. But I also think there's something, also interesting about the Free State and how now you can probably say this is a leadership that's going to make a clean break with what could have been deemed the Ace Magashule legacy at the helm. I mean, he led that province from about 1992 until 2017, when he was elected Secretary General of the ANC. So you've got a new dispensation, but also you've got almost 5 years of struggling to get to a clean break, and have a newly duly elected leadership. They tried a number of things, provincial general councils, an interim structure was put up by the National Executive Committee, and this interim structure has now delivered this conference, but the work ahead remains quite serious for this new leadership.
Let's delve into that, actually, because we heard from both Moloko Moloto and Sipamandla Goke as well that, the top two things or tasks that they should be focusing on is, first and foremost, to make sure that there's no divisions within the ANC structures in that province specifically, because we know that the Free State in the ANC in the Free State is a heavily divided ANC. And then secondly, of course, service delivery should be one of those tasks that should be dealt with immediately, because we know the Free State battles with service delivery, and we know the bucket system still in place in certain parts of that province as well. So do you agree that those should be the top two priorities for this new leadership to focus on?
In actual fact, I would argue that service delivery tops any other priorities, because remember, this is a leadership now that must also think about how do you prepare for the 2024 national and provincial elections. If you look at the outcomes of the 2021 local government elections, I mean, the ANC barely held on to the metro of the city of Mangaung. They lost some strategic municipalities to a coalition like Maluti Apufong, that area that looks after the terrain from Harrismith right up to the likes of Putadichaba. And of course, a number of other municipalities really showing progressive losses for the ANC in those municipalities. And therefore, I think if we are talking about the 2024 elections, it's more about the electorate now that you care about than you care about internal divisions of the ANC. Of course, the internal divisions of the ANC may affect your muscle to campaign, may affect your brain's trust to come up with ideas and send out the message to society. But I think the people of Free State, if their lives continue to deteriorate, if the healthcare facilities are not up to standard, they can't access clinics and hospitals in a way that is adequate to them. Those clinics and hospitals are not stocked in terms of their medicines to the levels that people require. If the issue of potholes and roads, I mean, some of the roads in the Free State, if you drive on them, I mean, your areas like Frankfurt, towards your Reeds areas and so on, they are actually death traps, and people are aggrieved by those roads because construction started in some of those roads and then ended halfway without the job being complete, and people now drive through the problem of corruption and the outcomes of corruption when projects don't see their life to the end because people are doing all sort of things with the procurement process and distorting the funds available for the projects to be implemented. So there are real service delivery issues, and I wonder, Mxolisi Dukwana, having now made a comeback to the Free State government, being appointed the MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, what are the wins that he can point to that he has managed to achieve? Of course, the Auditor General is still going to release municipal audit outcomes at some point, well ahead of the 2024 elections. And I think these are the things that ordinary Free State residents will be caring about, rather than whether Mxolisi Dukwana and Sisintombela are able to sit in a meeting and have coffee because they are now united. Those are behind the scenes issues, and I would argue that an important issue to really focus on has to be the issue of service delivery.
And of course, it's a clean slate or clean sweep for Dukwana's slate. They got all the top positions: chairperson, deputy chairperson, provincial secretary, provincial treasurer as well. A big win for that faction. And of course, I think the president would be happy with that.
Well, certainly for short-term stability, it matters to this current president. But unfortunately, that win really means nothing for after 2024 elections, because after 2024 elections, the whole ANC machinery will be worried about the next conference of the ANC, which will be in 2027. And because President Ramaphosa most likely will not be able to take a third term, that means you will have new contenders. So some will need to think about throwing their weight behind the current deputy president, and whether or not there will be somebody who emerges and wants to challenge a Paul Mashatile, for example, for that position of president. So this win is good for short-term successes and stability, at least between now and the next, national and provincial elections of 2024. But beyond that, the configurations and power dynamics will begin to show themselves as people position themselves towards 2027. And of course, Baron, as we've seen in previous ANC conferences, people use their incumbency as provincial chairpersons to try and bargain for themselves into the top six. Of course, we saw Stan Matabata doing it in Limpopo, not being successful this time around. Oscar Mabuyane doing it in the Eastern Cape, also not being successful. Probably the most successful time, 2017, when three provincial chairpersons made it into the top six of the ANC. It's now the top seven. So will Dukwana as well, in the time of his incumbency, become, ambitious and want to go into the top seven? Will that distract him from governing and uniting the Free State properly, or he will use it as a springboard for his own ambitions? These are all the questions that really become important when we think about what does this win mean within the broader dynamics that are to play themselves in the near future within the ANC.
Lukhona, we have unfortunately run out of time, but I want to ask you one last question. You can just answer it very shortly. What can we expect? What do you think we can expect from President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech now? He is delivering the closing speech to close this conference. Can you believe we're actually finally here? But what can we expect maybe from his speech?
Well, I think there are three things quickly. One, he must condemn the type of behavior within the ANC that could halt the start of this conference, and we see, almost violent elements. And of course, there is a growth of the killing of ANC councillors, branch members, and so on. And I think he needs to really speak to his comrades about organizational discipline. Secondly, of course, impress on the new leadership about these issues of service delivery we were talking about. And I think thirdly, he will definitely try and use this moment to address the nation maybe on some of the meetings that he has been having behind closed doors, consulting from religious leaders to traditional leaders and business and so on over these power blackouts, and probably say that government is actually ready and hard at work to reduce the impact of these power blackouts. And those are the three top things I would probably expect he addresses to this evening.
Thank you so much, political analyst Lukhona Mnguni, just giving us his He's sharing what he thinks about the new leadership there in the Free State.